What's up, everyone? Welcome to the RRBG podcast. Today, I'm being joined by a legendary musician, composer, the great Grant Kirkhope. Did I say that right? Grant
You did,
Kirkhope?
you did. Yeah, it's me. Hello, how are we doing?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, good. For those that are not maybe familiar with the name, you've put together some of the greatest works of my childhood, including the soundtrack for Goldeneye 007 on the N64. You've done Banjo Kazooie, Perfect Dark. I mean, a slew of games.
A whole slew.
A whole slew. Well, my first question was really how was it that you found yourself in that position in the first place to be composing for video game soundtracks in a time where, I guess the N64 era, you still weren't able to use like full music, like instrumentation. It was still kind of bits, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I did the normal skill stuff like you do, but I was a kind of classically taught trumpet player. And I started playing guitar about 12, kind of a self-taught metal guitar player. That's what, of course, metal's my thing. And so, got to like, I don't know, 18, went to music college in the UK for 4 years, did a music degree in trumpet playing, classical thing. And then didn't really want to do that really. I just did it because it was 4 years more without getting a job, right? So, and then spent the next like 11 years playing off in like metal bands and some other bits and pieces of kind of touring stuff. So I played it. I had my own. I had a couple of metal bands on my own that kind of had little indie deals that didn't do very well. And then one band was called Sire, Syar. Another band was called Maniacs, Maineeaxe, because you can't beat the old classic 80s spellings, right?
Sure, sure.
Um, and then I ended up playing trumpet in a UK rock band called Little Angels, they were kind of a hard rock band, so they did like pretty well. They did a #1 album in the UK. And we did some big tours, like supporting, the opening act for like Bon Jovi on a 6-week tour, Van Halen on a 6-week tour,
Well, that's huge.
like ZZ Top, Bryan Adams, who else? I can't think. Like we did. I mean, plus doing their own shows as well, right? So I mean, to play with Bon Jovi on the "I'll Sleep and I'm Dead" tour around Europe for 6 weeks, at the height, it was like
Yeah.
90,000 seat arena. It was us, Billy Idol and Bon Jovi. It was a great bill. We had a good laugh. And obviously, being a guitar player, getting to do a 6-week tour of Van Halen and Eddie Van Halen was, he really was a super nice, genuinely nice man. He really was. He talked to you every day. I think I talked to him every day for 6 weeks because I thought
Wow.
I maybe never meet him ever again. He gave me a guitar, ridiculous things. Well, I've even got it here.
You have a Van Halen guitar?
He gave you that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So I mean, so special times, but of course, as bands go, it all fell to pieces in the end. So I was like back to playing pub rock in my local town in North Yorkshire. And I had a mate who called Robin Beanland, who was a keyboard player. We played in local bands together. And he announced he'd got a job. And like no one that I knew got jobs, right? Everyone that I knew played in bands and like signed under unemployment for a while and back on tour, then unemployment. That's what all I did for 11 years, right?
Mm.
So he said, I'm going to go look at Rare and write music for video games. I was like, what? That's a job? I had no idea. So off he went. And he'd been there about a year and a half. Said to me, Grant, you've been off and on unemployment for like 11 years, what I had. Don't you think you should get a job? I was like, what can I do? I'm just playing bands. That's all. I'm just a bit of a waster, I suppose, really. He said, why don't you try writing stuff I do for video games? I said, well, I could have a go. So he recommended a bit of gear, bought a bit of a computer and a copy of Cubase and a synthesizer and bits and pieces. And I sent Rare 5 cassette tapes over the course of like 1994-ish. I never got a reply. And then got a letter saying, please come for an interview. And David Wise interviewed me and I got the job, would you believe? So no one was more, surprised than I was. So it was complete fluke. If Robin hadn't done it, I'd never have done it. It was complete fluke.
Wow, that's an incredible way to start, man.
I know.
I mean, to go from touring with Van Halen. I mean, me myself, I love video games, obviously, but I'm also, a musician, touring, all of
Right.
that. So to go from those levels of opening up for Van Halen, that's you would expect the next step is you're the next Van Halen, basically, right?
Yeah, no. If only.
Yeah, that's one thing a lot of people don't get. Like I have friends that are in bands that are like, oh, we're going on tour with Tool. My life is set. I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Because look, tons of times people don't really care about the opening act. They don't
Yeah,
even turn up to watch it half the time. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if you're on the Taylor Swift tour, maybe I don't know, but I feel like it would need to be a behemoth of a tour. I mean, like we did the Bon Jovi tour, and it was like 6 weeks on Europe, and they were like it was a Keep the Faith album, so it came back with a haircut and all that, So like that didn't do us, we had great fun, but it
Yeah.
didn't. It kind of boosted band at all.
Right, right, right. Do you think about potentially going back to metal now at this point in your life and maybe starting a band or
I'm a bit
starting?
old.
Yeah. Hey, there's a lot of older dudes playing still. Mastodon's still on the road,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I always thought like moving to LA. I thought I'm bound to get bumped into like a dad's rock band I could play for. And I've been here like since 2012, and I still haven't found one. It's like I can't believe there's not some kind of dad's rock band playing Bad Company covers or something, or free covers or something that I could just join in. But I haven't found one yet. But I did. Funny enough, I did it for the last Mario Rabbids game, Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope. I had to write a Metallica metal track for that. That style. So that's on my website actually. It's called I can't tell you what I can't remember what it's called, but it's on the soundtrack on Spotify. But it's yeah, it's a proper me try to be Metallica by myself with a guitar and a drum machine.
well, I mean, I haven't played that game, but I have to check out the soundtrack now because I want to hear that.
Yeah, like I forget I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, it was for there's like a in that game there's like an opera singing boss, and
Okay.
he sings an opera song, but we decided to do a metal song for one of the bits. And so I was like, yeah, hold my coat. Let me get. I can do that, no trouble. So that was great fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. If okay, so what would you say is one of the more, I mean, you've already mentioned a couple of legendary names, but what are some of your biggest influence in terms of metal for your style of playing?
Well, I'm older, right? So I guess my bands are going to be like Judas Priest, Maiden, Saxon.
Mm,
I was a massive Saxon fan back in the day when they're like, kind of up to like Denim and Leather, I suppose. Oh, I'll tell you what, I did like Pound the Glory. That's a great album, that is. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, that's a corking up. That's a great album. Yeah, I love Saxon back then. I mean, Priest, right? I kind of got as far as Painkiller with Priest. I didn't like it when they went super thrashy metal. I kind of liked it when they were that kind of classic metal. So I feel like Ram It Down maybe was the one before. Was it Painkiller? I can't quite remember. I still like that one. And I liked it when Rob rejoined and came back and they brought that album out. What was that called? That one when he came back?
Hmm.
When he first rejoined the band, that album was good. I haven't listened to Nostradamus yet or the new one.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Um,
neither have I.
yeah, but oh my God, I was a massive Priest fan. Like, just, ah, just, Robert Halford is just, in his day, my God, what a singer that man was. Like Queensryche, like I got into Queensryche probably, I did get into Queensryche on the first, like with the Warning, like the album, but I'd heard Queen of the Right before that. That's like the EP before, isn't it? I think it was on EP before. I think it was on, I can't remember, but I'd
Yeah.
heard that. And like Jeff Tate's vocals, just amazing. So, but I think for me, like I loved Queensryche. Rage for Order, I think is probably my favourite. I like that, and like Mindcrime's still a great. I love that too. I wasn't as keen on Empire. I just felt like it. You know what it's like when it gets a bit too commercial. And it's that classical thing when you're an old rocker. You like it the
Yeah.
way it was. Like I like Rush up until they got Hemispheres. I didn't like them for that kind of. It got too jingly jangly for me after that. Like Farewell to Kings was still the same good old Rush, like the kind of 2012 Rush that I liked.
Yeah.
Um, it's like Scorpions. I love Van Halen, everything they did from the word go to the end. I wasn't so keen on 5150 when Hagar joined, but I kind of liked some of it later. But I guess even though, Roth famously can't really sing very well, he was still great on the albums, right? I
Yeah,
feel
the
like,
albums
yeah,
were good. The
yeah,
performances were good. I
yeah.
mean, I grew up on the David Lee Roth era, so
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
yeah,
I feel like living in the UK, like, we just wanted to be him. He
yeah,
was so cool. Like his interviews, he was so clever and so eloquent. I mean, he told these stories. It was just, I mean, he's just absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, they went to the UK like I think once maybe or twice, and I
mm,
never saw them live. Apart from we toured with them, and by that point, Hagar was singing for them. So, but just Van Halen was just like, fantastic.
going a little back to Priest. So sadly, I was kind of a late bloomer when it came to metal, because I was in a very strict religious private school.
Oh wow, right.
And as soon as I got free of that, the first thing I did was run towards metal. Like they're like, you can't listen to that, it's the devil's music. I'm like, that's exactly where I'm going.
Yeah.
And sadly, the my exposure to Priest came from Beavis and Butthead.
Oh, really? How bizarre. Yeah.
That breaking the law,
Yeah.
it just got stuck in my head, and I'm like, all right, well, this is where I'll start, I guess.
No, like I remember like when British Steel came out, like you know, such a fantastic album, and I loved Killing Machine before that. I think you called it, was it called Helmet for Leather over here? It was called Killing Machine in the UK. I think it was called Helmet for Leather here. They
Yeah,
changed the
yeah,
title.
yeah.
Yeah, like and the first Monster of Rock, it was at Donington Park in the UK. It's a famous festival, and the first one happened right, and Rainbow were topping the bill at the time, and it was like Rainbow, it was like Saxon, Scorpions. Riot, these are all bands. You may be too young to remember these bands. April Wine,
Yeah. Ooh, I don't
like these
know.
bands. Yeah, I think they're before your time. You're too young. It was announced at the last minute that I don't know whether Black Sabbath might have pulled out and took the spot. It was like, oh my God! So they were second underneath the Rainbow at the top, right? And like that was I was right in the front for that, and it was just one of the best. They just Rob came on the Harley. It was all British Steel stuff, all there. Just absolutely phenomenal. Just loved every second of it. Like, and after that, I went to the back. Thought, I'm not about Rainbow, but I was right down the front for Priest. It was phenomenal. So I just loved that gig.
I got into Rainbow later in life, actually, in my late 30s, after was like digging deep into Dio's stuff and realizing Stargazer was
Oh
amazing.
wow,
Yeah,
yeah,
incredible
yeah,
song.
yeah.
Um, is there any newer bands that kind of catch your attention, or do you even go to shows anymore? Like, do you go to live shows?
I've been to live shows for a long time. I don't have the time really.
Uh,
My kids still go, but they're not metal fans. But like, I feel like I got to Nightwish. I know they're not new, but they're new to me.
okay.
So I watched that gig, that Wacken show in 2015, something, and I just thought, my God, they were brilliant. Like, I know they've had other, three singers and Flora Jansen's and Wonders to them at the moment, but I thought that show was absolutely spectacular. I thought, I've got to buy these albums. I bought I think everything up to that point, I think. I went back and listened to, oh, what's the first singer's name? I completely blanking on her name. Uh, oh God, the second one's Annette Olsen. She joined for the Storytime album. Not the one before that. Like, just some fantastic songs. Like, I just really enjoyed that band, and I like the way they kind of play that kind of symphonic metal. I wasn't sure I was going to like it, but I do. So, but they're the only one band that I don't know much about the other kind of like Epic and those bands that are kind of symphonic metal. I don't know much about them, but Nightwish I do, and I feel like I really like that band. Yeah, they're really great. It's got some great tunes they have. I
Nice.
can't even think. I don't think I know anything particularly modern. That I just don't think. I don't. I don't know any of the. I've no. I've heard of. I mean, I suppose Avenged Sevenfold, but they're not that new, are they? I mean, they're not that new.
They're
I
not that
mean,
new, yeah.
no.
There's a
Yes.
band from the UK right now that's blowing up and all over the place, selling out stadiums, called Sleep Token.
All
And
right.
there's a discussion on the internet that they're not really metal because they do genre bend a little bit, where
Right.
some songs are a little bit more hip hop. Even they'll have some hip
Right.
hop beats mix in, but then eventually they'll bring in some heavy guitar riffs on top and some screaming. And but it's an interesting time because the gatekeepy metalheads are like, that's not metal, get that out of here. And I'm kind of open to it because I feel like this is a new generation where the kids have access to any
Mm,
music they want on
yeah.
Spotify, and so they're getting fed a bunch of different genres. Back when I was younger, you find your thing, and then you find your friends that are in that thing, and then you get the tapes and the CDs, and
Yeah.
you're kind of stuck in your world of metal or genre. And now it just feels like it's the doors are open to kind of mix and match a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like, I think people get much more eclectic taste these days. I
Yeah.
think that it's not usual to have like a Metallica track next to a Lady Gaga track next to a video game track, right? I feel like you just because you can make your playlist of anything you can find, can't you? You have
Yeah.
to in our day, you used to go and buy the album, right? You have to buy the album and you listen to every track on the album, and that's the way it was. Like, I feel these days, because it's all digital, you can make it your playlist of anything you want. Like
Mhm.
John Williams' Star Wars next to Metallica, next to Lady Gaga, next to Ariana Grande. I don't know. I feel like your taste can be really broad these days. And I did find myself kind of liking bits and pieces of like Limp Bizkit. I thought some of those tracks I thought were pretty violent. I like them. I had a
Yeah.
bit of Linkin Park at the time. I quite like some of that. So I do feel like not all of it, but some of it you can see the metal in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do like that. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, again, the gatekeeping metalheads always make fun of things like a Limp Bizkit or whatever. But over the years, I've just gotten less and less. I don't care. Like, if you're introducing a new audience to something heavy or something different, I'm all for it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if you're starting the song as hip hop and you're grabbing this hip hop audience, and then by the end of the song, you're doing a Meshuggah style deep breakdown with, you know, 8-string guitars, that's cool. You're opening up
Yeah.
their minds, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's a quite healthy time for music taste. I feel like people can listen to anything they want to, and people listen to the most unexpected things that you wouldn't expect someone to listen to. Yeah, and equally, like video game wise, it's funny that like my son, right, is 22. Like his playlist is just video game tunes. There's no and Frank Sinatra of all things. So there's no kind of pop music in there at all. My daughter's kind of more traditional. She kind of hip hoppy stuff. That's quite a big. But she likes the old kind of Brit pop like Oasis, all that kind of stuff around the time. She likes that, and she likes the older rock like 70s rock, which is a bit bizarre. She's only 19, but like yeah, it's weird how people. It's so broad. You can just listen. You can pick out a little bit. Just pick the bits you like, right?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you how you felt about music, video game music composition, where I was always attracted to it, obviously because I was a gamer, but I felt like the industry as a whole never really respected video game music. It always felt like a side thing, like, oh, that's not real music. But I'm here fascinated by the works of like Nobuo Uematsu and Final Fantasy, or, you know, David Wise or you. And I'm like, why aren't people paying attention? Like, even as a little kid, like this Contra, if you listen to the Contra theme song, the jungle theme, that's a metal song.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, little bits sounds. But if you were to translate that to a guitar, that's a metal track. So,
Yeah. No.
how do you feel about the fact that, you know, the industry as a whole kind of doesn't really give that much attention to video game composers?
So I do feel like that's changing. So I feel like in the early days, probably, I feel like you might have a Game Boy that's got like, 3 monophonic channels and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And but it's a lot better than that now. So I do feel like opinions are changing, definitely. Like I feel like it's bleeding all over the place. Like you hear like Game Boy noises in dance tracks now. So I feel like it's getting everywhere. And I do think that just, you see these great big orchestral concerts now where they play my stuff or other people's stuff at these concerts and they sell them out. So these classical orchestras that are like, of realizing that if they do a few video game concerts a year and they sell it out for always gets sold out to the rafters, right? Yeah. And they make money at it. So then they can perhaps finance playing the more experimental music that perhaps doesn't get that well attended. So it still like lets the art grow because they're playing things that are these new things. But if you do video game concerts, you can sell the place out, make a ton of money, and it's a bit like a semi-rock show. People are cheering and all sorts. So those concerts are fantastic, so they're a great event. People really enjoy it. And also you get kids going to their parents, I want to go to the symphony. They're like, what, are you crazy? Like, yeah, there's a concert on.
Yeah.
Like, so they, you know what I mean? So they go, and then they might get into some classical music perhaps. I don't really like the word classical music. I think like that makes people think of stuffy things back in, like even like Mozart, because it's classical, Renaissance, sort of romantic, there's different eras, like thing. So it's not just that kind of traditional Mozarty stuff at the start. There's plenty of other stuff that's pretty metal in the way it comes across. It's big and bombastic and all that, So I feel like it can introduce people to other members. And I also feel like video game tunes have kind of reintroduced people to just instrumental music again, because there's no vocals, right, most of the time.
Yeah.
So I think that it's people go, no, I can listen to something that's just purely instrumental. I'm not with a vocal that I expect to hear a chorus or words that I'm going to recite back kind of thing. So, and I do feel like also because video game tunes, you tend to play video games for hours on end, right? So you get kind of brainwashed into hear the music over and over and over again. So perhaps it gets a bit of an unfair advantage because people just listen to it all the time. Yeah. But I do feel like it's like, I feel like I live in LA and, I bump into the director people and I feel like a lot of you're hard pushed to find younger directors that haven't played video games. The older guys, maybe not, and they still think it's a bit blink, blink, blink fizz, like little bloops and beeps. But the younger guys, 20s to 30s, they for sure are video games players. So I feel like it's definitely a changing landscape. And I feel like people are realizing that it's a gigantic music force.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my wife, who you met at the convention that we met, she and I got engaged at a Final Fantasy Symphony concert.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I was able to reach out to Arnie Roth, and just kind of, hey, I would like to do this, and
Right.
they went above and beyond what I was expecting. To be honest, like I was just expecting a just a pause so I can do it,
Right.
but they actually put stuff up on the screen.
Oh, wow.
They put a spotlight on. I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. But it was a beautiful
Yeah.
moment, and those, like I said, we go every year or whenever they're in town now because we, to celebrate our engagement. But those shows are always sold out. It's crazy.
Yeah. They are. They're great. I think they're great events because it's slightly less um, pompous than sometimes classical concerts can seem to be.
Yeah.
It's more, people are much more happier frame of mind because it's video game stuff, right? So I think they really are great things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you in terms of your process when you're given a project or a game to work on for soundtrack. What usually how do you begin? Do you play a little bit? Do you see a little bit and then kind of start coming up with melodies, or do you have riffs or notes and things that you have already kind of stored that you bring in and you're like, I think this fits.
I think sometimes the game's not in a state to play sometimes.
Mm,
So it might be they can provide a little bit of video stuff for you. Like, depends. Like when I was with Blizzard and World of Warcraft, they provided videos and art and tons of stuff. Like, it was so brilliant to see all that to get you, give you the gist of what's going on. And sometimes you might just get a few sentences. For people, it's so I always I feel like composers these days, like, we kind of call ourselves media composers. So I feel like if someone says to me it's a frozen ice castle or something like that, I'll be thinking, what's spiky and icy in my head? What is it? So I'll think of like pizzicato strings and glockenspiels and celeste that are kind of spiky. It sound icy to me. So that would be a starting point for me. Or if it's like a warm forest, I'm thinking about, I don't know, bassoons or strings or something that's warm and, for a warm forest. So I think, like, you just get, I think human beings are a bit pre-programmed to kind of expect to hear certain things at certain points. That's because the movies have been around since the 30s or the 20s or whatever. So you're
yeah.
used to hearing, when you see the cavalry appear, you expect a certain kind of sound, or it's in space, you expect a certain kind of sound. So I feel like we're already pre-programmed to expect things like that. So I'll just, I'm not a very intellectual composer. I just tend to mess around till I hear something that I like. So I'll load up a sample clarinet, a French horn, or a synth patch or something, and try and find some chords that I like that are in the direction, or a melody that I like, or something like that. So I feel like I feel like composers like me who kind of work in the industry as freelancers, you're just used to doing that.
Hmm. So in that theme, so feeling like you said, like if you're, oh, it's a forest or it's ice. One soundtrack that comes to mind was the Banjo Kazooie soundtrack, and that was such a like a whimsical kind of I don't know, it was very iconic and has a very particular style. How did you kind of how did that come to mind with like that? It's kind of has like a bounciness to it.
Yeah, so when I was starting that game, like we were trying to beat Mario 64 at the time, right? That's what we're trying. We didn't necessarily do it. That's our goal, right? So
Yeah.
and I knew that I couldn't write that kind of poppy jazz that Koji Kondo does. I just can't write like that. I'm not good at it, and so it would be that. So I thought I needed to find something that was me, and I
Mm.
kind of I'd written the first two levels, and they were like different to the what's in the game right now. And I think I got to Monster Mansion, something one of the spooky level, and I was trying to work out how to keep it dark in nature, but not scare the kids, right? Like
Right.
because sometimes you don't want to scare the kids. So I was watching Beetlejuice by Daniel with Daniel Elfman, who did the soundtrack, and I noticed it was that umpa, that kind of thing that went on, that kind of umpa thing. I thought, ooh, and it was quite dark harmony. I thought so. And a kind of light bulb was like, well, so if you have a dark harmony that's pretty dark, really, if it's played by itself, if you pair it with a kind of a jaunty rhythm, it doesn't sound that dark, but it's got the darkness in it. So I was like, ooh. So then I went back and redid the first two levels with the kind of umpa thing. And I hit on the tritone thing. That's like, with an octave C to C. The furthest note away from both C's is an F sharp in the middle, which is augmented fourth, diminished fifth. So that's like the furthest point away from the C, right? It's right in the middle. So I figured that the two characters in the game, Banjo Kazooie, Banjo's a dumb bear, Kazooie's a kind of sarcastic bird. I thought they got very opposite personalities. So I thought maybe I can reflect that in the music by doing the tritone thing. And
Mm.
so the kind of I guess you call it polka music, but the umpa with the tritones kind of became the tritones. It used to be called the devil's interval, like Paganini, the violin player, was that back in the day, it was like accused to be the devil,
Yeah.
so it's that weird thing. But like yeah, so it just kind of it created that kind of kooky style that the game's known for, right? And I'm kind of known for it, I guess, to this day because of that.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it was just one of those things you kind of fall upon and like, oh, that sounds quite quirky. And then I got the harmony became slightly more complex of trying to make things uh, more offbeat and all over the place. So it kind of got a bit like that. So and it just ended up being the game, right? So, but you don't, in those days, back in 1997 or whatever it was, you was no, it wasn't very much internet to speak of really. So you had to wait for the magazines to review stuff and like wait a month. So you didn't know whether anyone liked it or not. So
Ah,
you write it and just go. And it's like that was my first game that I did all the music, all the sound effects. I'd done Goldeneye before that. That was just music. So this game was completely mine, the entire soundscape. So you had
wow.
no idea if people were going to think it was shit or good. So you'd have to wait, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it turned out all right, but you never know. You just do your best, don't you?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing I hadn't thought of, like how different it is now where it's kind of instantaneous and
Yeah,
a lot of these reviewers get the stuff beforehand. So like the day of a release, you already have opinions, out in
yeah.
the marketplace.
Well, I think they can kill games overnight these days.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I do
And
feel like it's. I don't really like that. I think there's. I don't know what the better way to do it is, but I feel like you should just say it's. I don't like it, but it's a good game. I feel it should be more like that. It's not what I like about a game, but I feel like people just kind of absolutely trash games for no real good reason.
yeah,
I
it's
don't think.
called the review bombing as they call it nowadays. And
Yeah,
they do it for very like ridiculous reasons too, not even game related. They're just like some games get review bombed just because there's a particular actor in it or there's
yeah,
something.
yeah,
It's kind of wild.
yeah. I don't feel it's objective as it used to be. I don't feel like.
Yeah.
So I just think that that's a bit of a shame because good games get hammered and don't get played.
Yeah.
And then often, like 6 months to a year later, people are like, "Oh my God, this game's great," and it maybe
Mm.
picks up then. But you get that initial thing where it gets review bombed and the studio gets shut, right? And it's
Yep.
all over.
And then there's no sequel or
No.
any additional content to come out.
Mm.
It's a damn shame because
Yeah.
I've actually sworn off of reviews like in terms of um, letting it affect my purchase decision because people are always going to find a reason to complain about something.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
like there was this Fallout 76 came out and
Yeah.
it was destroyed on the
Mm.
reviews, and I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? I don't care. I love Fallout. I'm going to give it a shot. And I ended up having a blast with it. And then like
Yeah.
2 years later, people are like, oh, it's actually good. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, man.
I know it's a real shame that goes on, and I don't know if people try to make a name for themselves, or I don't know, but I just feel like it's a real shame that things get a real beaten down in the first 10 minutes, and then it just kind of dies a death.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to go back to the Goldeneye you mentioned. So, you said you had this whimsicalness with Banjo came after, right? But what was it like working on the Goldeneye? Because I know it's a movie license. I would assume that they wanted you to use some of the things from the movie soundtrack, or how was that? How was it switching kind of gears from your typical style to trying to do something a little more serious and something that has already established? Because you're famous for that pause music that's gone viral with that song, but that's it's the James Bond theme
Right.
kind of tweaked it a bit. So how
Yeah.
was that with them and that relationship with the movie?
So we could do anything we liked really. So the point was we knew we had the license for the Bond theme, which is brilliant. So to get to use that iconic theme was like someone like me of my age, like growing up in the 70s, like the Bond movies were always the best movies, right? Best movie of the year, the best sound effects, the best action, the best everything, best music. So that was amazing to get to do that. So I was just over the moon that they got to play with the Bond melody. But I was just at Rare. I was still a long hair. I was still a bit of a total metal. Well, still a metal fan now, but like I was just, identifiably metal. So like, to get to do that, I sort of tried to get as much metal in there as I could, really. So I feel like, especially in the cradle at the end, it's got that. I've written a metal song with that riff. It's called Absolution. I put it on Spotify as a band I played for years ago called New Song, Noussommes. And there's a track on there called Absolution. If you played that track, you'll hear that riff.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I put that in there. But to get to do that was amazing. So I just was trying to use the Bond theme in as many different styles as I could. I mean, I had the double CD at the time, which had all the pop songs that before the movie starts, you get a pop song, don't you? So I had all those, like the Tina Turner one and the Shirley Bassey one, all those great tunes, and Duran Duran one. And so went through all of those and picked out bits that I thought were that could maybe stick into stuff that I was writing. But along with Graham Norgate, we did it together. So that was just great fun. And when it came to the pause tune, right, that's, I remember telling you when I saw you, like, no one, when you're at a pause tune for a game, you do it in like 15, 20 minutes tops, because you think, who cares about pause music? They're going to pause the game, go to the bathroom, get a pizza, have dinner, whatever. So you don't think anyone's going to bother listening to a pause tune. You just do it and don't think about it. So it's crazy that that's become this kind of iconic thing after all these years. It's bizarre because it is just the Bond theme, but I think it's a drum beat that did it. That doom, 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 doom. It's a kind of a hip hop beat, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, as a metal fan at the time, I was like, I don't even know what hip hop is or care, because I had no interest in it. But I just thought that drum beat sounds quite popular at the time. I'll just stick it in. And bizarrely enough, I feel like that's what sold it in the end. But yeah.
Oh,
So
what sold it to me was the xylophone.
oh, really?
The xylophone
That's strange.
sound. 'Cause
I always
like,
thought it was, yeah. I feel like the xylophone. I feel like that's the vibes, right? It's a vibraphone. It's
yeah,
that metal
vibraphone.
thing that's got a motor, so it goes whoa, 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 whoa underneath it.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like the vibraphones are very 60s. In the 60s spy movies, it's all over those movies in the 60s, right? So I just naturally thought spy, vibraphone, and that's what I used to that. So I guess it's weird you picked up on that, because I always felt like people picked up on the drum beat, right?
Well, I mean, again, I'm not a hip hop guy either, like you. So that's probably why I was probably like, oh, the instruments, the other instruments, that's what I
Right.
was listening to. But yeah, that's really what stuck with me. And I just remember seeing those videos going viral over my feed of the people like, it's not making fun. I don't know what you call it, but it's more of like, hey, I need you to come up with some pause music, not a big deal.
Yeah.
Don't do anything crazy. And then
Yeah.
you just drop this banger.
I know. Yeah, no, those videos are really cool out there. But who'd have thought it? It's bizarre that it's taken like 25, whatever it is, years. And you don't know why these things catch on. It's just like the DK rap. Equally, it's weird how some things just catch on and you don't know why. If you could predict it, you'd make money, right? But you can't. So there you go.
Yeah. They just, speaking of Bond, they just announced Dennis Villeneuve will be
I saw that.
directing the new ones. I'm excited to
Mm,
see stylistically how that's going to look.
I know.
Because they're pretty the newer Bonds are kind of standard action. They, you could flip in between them and Mission Impossible movies and wouldn't be able to tell a difference. But Denny, I don't know how you say his name.
Yeah,
Denny.
I don't know what it is.
If it's Dennis or Denny, but
One of the two.
he has a very specific visual style. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what they do with that. Have they approached you at all to maybe come back to do something like that for the movie?
I wish.
Or no?
I wish. No. I did try to get in the game, but they didn't turn me down. So the new game coming out. So
Oh, right, they are doing a new game.
yeah. It's called got announced like 2 weeks ago, I think, something like that. The Hitman guys are doing it, so I guess it'd be good because Hitman guys know how to make that kind of game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like because that's the Villeneuve, because it's him. You'd imagine he's probably going to use Zimmer for the soundtrack because he did the last one that he did, the Dune stuff. So you'd think maybe, but I'm just a little bit worried about Amazon's involvement. I'm worried about that. I just don't know. I hope they don't, because when you got like Barbara Broccoli and Cubby Broccoli with her father, the famous director that did all the movies until he died, and she's been involved in all the movies since he died. Like, they are the Bond people, right? The fact that Bezos just wanted rid of them and said, I want them out of the way, and just offered them $2 billion, whatever it was, to buy them out. So they have no control over the Bond franchise whatsoever. It's just Amazon and Bezos. So I don't know. I'm hopeful, but if they just try to over commercialize it, I just think it'll kill it. I just think it's not going to be great. And they try to make a TV series out or something like that. It's going to be like, don't do that. Bond movies used to appear every 5 years or so and just be great,
Yeah.
And I really like I did like Daniel Craig a lot, and I think Casino Royale's great. I love that, the first movie he did. I was expecting it to be a disaster. I thought it was so good, like just fantastic. So I don't know. I'm slightly worried about the whole Amazon involvement. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited only on the basis of the director.
Yeah,
I hear you with your concerns because we're in an era where everything gets milked completely way beyond its point of expiration, where, like, I love Star Wars, but
right.
we have enough.
Yeah, yeah,
Slow it down. Well,
yeah.
same with Marvel. Like, I love Marvel movies, but there's way too many and too many TV shows and cartoons, and it just becomes this like kind of homogenized, overproduced kind of thing
Yeah,
that I start losing interest. It becomes forgettable.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I feel like getting to Endgame in the event in the Marvel saga was just spectacular, and like Infinity War was spectacular. Like I don't feel since then it's been any good for me. It's been all right some bits, but there's been some ridiculous lows. Like the Marvels was dreadful. That was a dreadful movie. Like
That was terrible.
I just I know, and I
Eternals
just
was terrible.
oh my God, I just like well,
Yeah,
I saw Captain America and the thing, and that wasn't very good either. And like, but then Andor was good for the
Andor was
Star
great.
Wars thing.
Andor was great.
So it proves that you get the right writers and don't mess around with it and let them. I feel like when you let the fans make this, like Dave Filoni did all the Clone Wars stuff, right? He's a
Right.
massive Star Wars fan. He knows all the lore, and he just what a success that was because you let the fans make the game, right? Equally, letting Terry Matalas make the third show. He's a massive Star Trek fan, knows it inside out. When you just let the pick someone who's a massive fan, let them make it. They make something great. But
Yeah.
when you get too many people getting the fingers in there, we don't like that. You just get that kind of game or movie that's made by like a democratic process, which is watered down. And there's
Hmm.
no, I guess a director like Villeneuve's just going to go, it's my way or the highway, right?
Yeah.
And
Hopefully.
yeah, and so no, but I mean, you feel like you're either going to get something spectacular, or it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
But at least you've got that absolute unfiltered vision that comes out at the end that's his, you
Yeah.
know. So I think that let the fans make the stuff.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Wanted to ask your opinion on where you see the landscape today musically for video game composers. Things have changed from when you've got your start. You're obviously using more software and limited, sound banks compared to where we're at now, where you can just use a whole orchestra and
Yeah.
whatnot. How do you see that the landscape has changed in that sense? And what advice can you give any like aspiring anybody that wants to become a video game composer?
I feel like anything goes now. I think you've got every genre of music in video games somewhere. Everything. From string quartet to intense metal. It's everywhere. You've got Doom, you've got massive metal in Doom, you've got like string quartets, you've got everything in between. I mean, it's as diverse as the kind of pop industry, if you want to call it that, or just, mainstream music industry. It's no different, right? It's everything's in there, which is great,
Yeah.
and people are looking for new sounds and new things to do, just like anybody is. So it's fantastic. I feel like my criticism of movies is these days is that the movie soundtracks for the big blockbusters it's very big and very epic and it's exciting, but it's unremarkable. You don't remember a note of it. Like, back in the 70s, 80s, your Star Wars, Indiana Jones and Harry Potter and all that stuff that happens, everybody knows those theme tunes, right?
Hmm.
Back to the
Hmm.
Future, everybody knows all that stuff because it was written by guys who knew how to write a tune. So I feel like these days that I miss that in movies and TV shows for definite. That just the themes aren't there anymore. That's what I feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like video games is still the last bastion of themes in some respects. I think you still have proper tunes in video games to this point. So it's all there for the taking. That's what I think. I think to young composers, I'd say there's a few things I always said about young composers, but I kind of feel like you know, just being great at what you do, being the next John Williams or whatever, isn't enough, right? Because you put your music on a website somewhere or YouTube, no one's going to hear it properly. There's a bazillion people doing that every minute of every day, right? So it's a given that you're good, right? That's a given, right? The other half of the job is your network and people that you know. I feel like that's the most important part. You have to get into that space where people are doing the thing that you want to do, whatever that is, right? So you go to game jams, I go to GDC conventions or whatever to bump into people that are making games that might need a composer because everybody needs a composer at some point, right?
Yeah.
There's plenty of people making stuff, and if you do the indie stuff at the start, great. Like I've got my good friend of mine, Danny Baranowski. He did the Binding of Isaac, Super Meat Boy, Crypto
Love that game.
Necrodancer. Yeah, Danny's a great composer and a great friend. I've known him for ages. And he was just that guy that worked in Lowe's, Home Depot, humping stuff around, wanted to be a video game composer. And he actually covered one of my pieces from Perfect Dark and got it on a website called OC Remix. And OC Remix is a website that just has people doing video game covers and they feature the ones they like the best. And they liked Danny's version of this tune. And the guy that made Cannibal heard it and contacted Danny and said, do you want to write music for Cannibal? So he did. And then the Meat Boy guys heard that and he got the gig. Right, great. Equally, Daniel Rosenfeld, he goes by C418, was the original Minecraft guy. He was just this like 17-year-old kid in Germany in a chat room when Notch was trying to find a composer. Anybody here write music? I write music. Got the gig. He's probably the most famous video game composer there is, you know. So I feel like, you know, you've got to, everybody's got a different way, but you've got to find a route through. And you've got to get yourself out there. And I feel like a lot of time the composers, we're all a bit introvert. We sit in rooms and just write music all day long, 8 hours a day, don't talk to anybody. You've got to kick that off when you go out. You've got to go out and meet people. It's the only way. You might be lucky, but it's unlikely. You're going to have to get out there and get into that space where those people are that are doing stuff that you want to get involved in. And it's hard. And I've got to do it to this day. You've got to network. You've got to get on with it. But it's as important as the talent part. It's equal. 50% being a good composer, 50% the people that you know. I know plenty of not great composers. You know, tons of people get a lot of work. And lots of great composers, you know, nobody get no work.
Yeah, so that's solid advice for any kind of creative outlet too.
Yeah,
you know, I tell that to comedians because I'm involved in the comedy scene out here, and just regular musicians that are in bands, not like video game music. And you have to get out there. Pro wrestling as well. Like I have a lot of pro wrestling friends, and they're like, "Oh, you know, I can't get any work." I'm like, well, "Are you going to the conventions? Are you going out? Go to the local shows and just hang out, and talk to people, and you know, for comedians, go to the comedy store and just hang out at the bar. You never know who you're going to meet while you're out there, and put yourself out there. Don't just sit in a corner like you would at home. You know, just introduce yourself, and it's a solid advice for everyone, I think.
Yeah, and it is hard. It's, you know, that cold conversation is difficult. You know, it's hard, and that, I guess the American way is that elevator pitch, right? In an elevator, you got 10 seconds. Who are you? You know, that thing we go. You know, what you got to try and get that concise 10, 15 seconds of stuff. And also, when you're pitching music for stuff, it's the kind of 24-second rule where people listen for the first 24 seconds and they don't like it, they skip it. So if you've written a piece of music that's got a great bit in the middle, and they're not going to get that far, so edit it. Have a little intro, but get the best bit. Get that bit that you hear it first, right? Be impressive. Don't expect them to go to the end of the track because they're not going to get that far. They're going to give up. Yeah. So you know it may even be less than 24 seconds these days, but that was kind of the rule. 24 seconds and you skip it. So if your best bit's not in the first 24 seconds, that keeps them listening. They're not going to get to it.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah,
I got one of my tracks I got a radio station to play one of my songs, and we had a very lengthy intro.
Right.
And about 15 seconds, and he's like, "When the hell is the song starting?" I'm like,
"Yeah,
my bad."
Yeah. No, but I think you just, a lot of these things you don't think about till someone tells you. You go, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea." Yeah. You know, it's one of those things that you've got to think of the worst case scenario of trying to get, because, you know, people get bombarded with music all the time. And to try to get above the noise is incredibly hard. And I think even the big composers, you know, these days still find it hard. It's hard at every level, no matter what level you are, whether you're a superstar or a beginner, it's hard, it's equally hard. So you've just got to, and also don't argue with the creative director. It's a waste of time. Like you tell him that he doesn't like the music, so but listen, it's got great chords, great melody. Doesn't matter. He doesn't like it. Yeah. That's it. It's like, you know, I like Metallica. Somebody else likes Ariana Grande. I'm not going to get them to listen to Metallica stuff. Equally the other way around, right? Just the way it is. So there's no point arguing and telling them it's a great tune, very catchy. Doesn't matter. It's not going to work. So just go, I'll do it again. Yeah. And it's the people that go, "I'll do it again," and don't argue, and amicable, get along, no arguing, they get rehired time and time and time again. The arguers that don't get hired ever again.
Easy to work with.
Don't do that. Just don't do it. I feel like if you want to write your own music, write a pop song, a symphony, whatever you want to write, great. You write whatever you want. But the minute you're hired by somebody else, they're your boss. From that point onwards, and you write what they want, or they're going to find somebody else who will.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you some like lighthearted questions here. What's the weirdest like instrument or sound that you've created for a video game that you consider like, oh man, that's weird? Like I've read stories of like Trent Reznor, and I don't know how real they are, but they're like, oh, he would grab an animal and put it underwater for 5 seconds, and it would make a weird blah, 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 and he would use that sound. So is there
I'm sure that's true.
It's probably true. But like for yourself, what's the weirdest or quirkiest sound or thing you've created?
I guess, you know, because it's Banjo Kazooie, you have to use a kazoo, right?
All right.
So, you know, you don't very often use a kazoo. Got my trusty kazoo here. It did get a bit, it's not working. But like, but, I feel like, that was a bit of an odd one.
Okay.
So, I've never recorded kazoo, very often or ever. And so that was a bit bizarre.
Okay.
So, you do get asked for weird things. And sometimes people ask for a weird thing and then realize it's just not going to work. So
Mm.
you endeavor to do your best and go. So that's the thing where you say, you're crazy, mate. That's going to be a stupid idea. You just go, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then they go, oh, yeah, it's a daft idea. You do something else. So but often, you know, Trent Reznor and Atticus, whatever his name is, Ross
Atticus Ross. Yeah.
they're a good example because they make strange music a lot
Yeah.
of the time, and people like it. So, I feel like the canvas is as big as what you want it to be, right? It could be anything.
Yeah. Speaking of those two, it's such an interesting thing. Nine Inch Nails is a hugely influential for me. One of the first cassettes I ever purchased was Pretty Hate Machine, and
Right.
to see the transition of that band go from industrial metal to now making Disney soundtracks is
Right.
is
Yeah.
very, very surreal to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um,
I always think when I was back in the rock discos, or what you want to call it, in the UK, it was like Enter Sandman had like a hole, They were just
yeah,
like, yeah, they were the staples, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if you saw they're doing a thing out here in LA. Some I forget what it's called. Future Ruins, I think.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, Danny Elfman's on it too, isn't he? Yeah, I saw that.
It's
Yeah.
all music
Mm,
soundtrack composers. I was kind of
that'd be cool.
I want to go, but the ticket prices are obscene.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
There's that.
$300, $400.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know. I don't know about all that.
yeah.
I wanted to bring a point too back when we were talking about themes and music themes. And not to throw any shade, I like Hans Zimmer, but that was a point that I wanted to bring up was like John Williams versus like a Hans Zimmer. He's very popular, Hans Zimmer, Inception and all these great movies, but I can't really outside of maybe Inception, not Inception, which is the one in space, Interstellar.
Right.
Outside of the Interstellar piano theme, I can't really think of like any particular theme of his that gets stuck in my head the way that like an Indiana Jones's theme or a Star Wars theme would get stuck in my head from John Williams.
Yeah, I just feel like Hans Zimmer is very different, right? I feel like he's more experimental, exploratory. I think
Yeah,
in the early days he did write a lot of tunes. I mean, I'm
yeah.
I'm a bit like you. These days I don't hear that much of that stuff in his music these days.
Hmm.
But when I think of Pirates of the Caribbean, I think that's just incredible. Like, the music in it, that's fantastic.
Well,
I mean,
Lion King, right? He
yeah,
did Lion King.
so you can. I just feel like maybe he'd done so many movies, he just got sick of writing tunes and wanted to have experiment a bit more. So
Yeah,
but like when I listen to his Batman and Danny Elfman's Batman, it's Danny Elfman's Batman for me because they've got that tune that's just the best Batman tune ever, in my opinion. I think Danny Elfman's the two ones that he did are spectacular. It's got
yeah,
that complete gothiness about it. It's perfection.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's just I think I agree with you, but I feel like each to their own, isn't it? It's hard. I think sometimes it might depend on what age you are. Sometimes I think you know there's that YouTube segment where a person's got a mic going down the street saying, "Can you sing Indiana Jones? Can you sing Harry Potter? Can you sing Star Wars?" And they're all doing it. Can you sing Captain America?
Oh,
Blank.
yeah.
Can you sing Spider-Man? Blank. Can you sing? And that's to me like that sums it up in 10 seconds. It's like, I feel like the Avengers, I can remember that theme because it's Alan Silvestri, and I can remember his Captain America theme, but like the rest of the Marvel movies, it's a bit like, where's the tunes? When you got that gigantic franchise of those fantastic heroes, where are the themes? Like I would want to hear, I want a proper Thor, I want a proper. I think Spider-Man, I can kind of remember that a bit now because Mr. Giacchino's taken over and he can
Mhm.
write a tune. And I do like, I've got to say, I do like the Danny Elfman Spider-Mans. I think I like those. But it's a bit like, for me, it's a wasted opportunity. I feel like when the Avengers movies are on and the Avengers theme kicks in, it's such an amazing moment. And it's not that hard a theme, but it's Alan Silvestri, he's an old composer, wrote Back to the Future, knows how to write a tune, and billions of other movies, knows how to write a tune. So I just feel like you don't have to have wall to wall melody, but there's moments where you just have it just makes all the difference. Like, when you see when Darth Vader turns up, when Luke has his theme, when Leia has a theme, when those moments show up in the movies, it's like, oh, here we are, it's fantastic, right? I feel like John Williams has got that real ability of, like, I call it his kind of tread water music, where he's got this severely super exciting music that happens in big battles, and then Darth turns up. You bang on the money with the tune. Back to the kind of all over the place for the big TIE fighters, and Luke's theme pops up. It punctuates it so well. It makes such a difference when that's there. And I kind of feel like people have forgotten what that's like. It makes a massive difference. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I feel like these days, when you get a semblance of a tune, people are going, "Oh my God, the theme, the theme, the theme." And it's not like a real theme, it's a half a theme. But because you're kind of theme starved these days, people make a fuss of it when it turns up.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of themes, I mean, was there one of your themes that you came up for one of the games that kind of gets stuck in your head when you're maybe in the shower and you're kind of like humming it, unconsciously humming it? Is there any of yours that comes to mind?
I feel like maybe other people's more than my own. It's like when it's your own thing.
Yeah.
I'll be, I don't know, Hell Bent for Leather will pop up or something. And I don't know, something that a metal track somewhere. So I guess I get that. So yeah, it's not my own usually. It's usually somebody else's.
Okay. Okay. Which project would you say, in terms of games, is your favorite creation so far?
That's hard because I feel like it's trying to choose your favorite kid, isn't it? You know,
But there's always
yeah.
one that behaves more.
I know, yeah, yeah. That daughter of mine, she's pesky. Yeah, so I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I guess, doing Goldeneye was amazing, and it's so well remembered, and equally Banjo Kazooie.
Mhm.
Those two, but recently, I mean, and the DK rap, of course. But I feel like recently, like, to do two Mario games is ridiculous. Like, if you'd told me that in 1995 I'd get to work on two Mario games, I thought you were crazy. Like, that was spectacular. Get to
Yeah.
work on World of Warcraft. Like, I was a massive Warcraft player in the 2000s. I mean, practically to the point of getting divorced. I might never talk to my wife for weeks on end. Just stuck in playing World of Warcraft. I mean, like, so to actually get some music in World of Warcraft and play it and hear it was such a kick for me doing that. I mean, to get a track in the Super Smash Brothers, that was unbelievable. To
Yeah.
write a track for Street Fighter 6, that was amazing. So I've been really lucky to get to touch some of these gigantic franchises. So it's too hard to choose one.
Is there a franchise or a video game specific series that you've been wanting to work with and haven't had a chance?
That's easy. It would be Zelda for definite.
Zelda.
Oh,
Wow.
for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, I like Zelda Link to the Past on the SNES is my favorite game of all time, always.
Oh
So
wow.
I love that game. So, I mean, there's no chance of me working on a Zelda game, but I mean, that would be the one I'd love to work on Zelda. It would be amazing.
Well, don't ever say never. Come on.
Well, it's Nintendo, right? So I don't think so.
You've
But,
got
but
Mario. I mean,
well, I
that's
know, true, true,
close.
true. But yeah, Zelda would be amazing. I love Zelda. Yeah.
That would be incredible. That would be
Mm.
incredible. Do you still play video games at all? I mean, is there anything that you're playing now, like recently?
So I'm addicted to Clash Royale on my phone. I cannot stop playing it. My wife just says gets me in such a bad mood. She says just stop playing that game. I just play it. I've got to say, it must be a couple of hours a day, every day. It has to be.
Wow.
I'm addicted to it. So I don't get much time to play anything else really. And my son's a massive gamer. He's 22, and he's just done a degree at UC Santa Cruz to be a video game designer. He just finished his back next week.
Oh wow.
So he's a massive gamer. So I do watch what he does. So I kind of get the gist of what's going on. But yeah, Clash Royale right now. I mean, it's been Clash Royale for probably a year, maybe
Wow.
longer. Like I just cannot stop playing it. Like,
I gotta check it out. I've seen all the ads and everything, but I have a
honestly,
hard time with mobile games only because my fingers are so big. I can't like the little tiny screens. I can't handle it. I can barely text people, let alone control an army or something.
I think you'll manage on Clash Royale. I think it's doable. That is. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you'll be all right with big fingers on that one. But I've got to say, it's a great game. I just cannot stop it. I can't put it down. I mean, I kind of played it. My son said, "You should try this, Dad." I was like, "Oh yeah." And then 2 years later, I'm still.
Nice, nice. My wife and I are currently hooked on the new Dune video game, Dune Awakening.
Oh yeah, people say that's good. Mm,
It's challenging. It's a survival type of game, so there's a lot
mm.
of gathering resources and building and making sure you're drinking water and all that
Right.
stuff. So it's almost it feels like work, but it's fun work. Like
Yeah, no, yeah, I do know that. When I was a big World of Warcraft, you'd spend hours collecting stuff.
mhm.
It was a bit like work. I know what you mean. Yeah, your
Yeah,
job for the evening is like collect this stuff. Yeah.
my mom, when I used to play World of Warcraft, would ask me, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm collecting flowers so I can make potions."
I know. I remember those days. Oh, they were great days. I was part of a raid, like a guild too. So we used to do raids, and I was in UK at the time, and they were in Europe, so they were an hour ahead of me. So I had to get back from Rare quick to get online for 6, which is their 7. Because they're an hour ahead, and just be online for the night in the big dungeons. It used to be fantastic fun. That, but as I say, my wife never saw me for weeks on end. So
Yeah, it's a different time now, especially as I'm getting older. I don't have I used to do the same. I
yeah,
was on a West Coast server, so I would have to be up at 2 in the morning to do a raid, and like
yeah,
I can't physically do that now.
no,
In my
no,
I can't.
no. I get that. No, I totally agree. I feel like you get to a point where it's like I've got lives going on. I've got to get on with that.
Yeah. Have
Yeah.
you have you ever done a tour of your video game music?
How do you mean?
Like play it live?
Oh, yeah. I'm usually most of the games I'll play at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
So yeah.
I mean like performing, like
Oh, right. Funny you should mention that. So me and Dave Wise we've done the band thing a couple of times. So we
okay.
played in Arizona last year, and we played in somewhere else. So completely blanking on. Oh, we did. No, we did Arizona as a full band last year. Then me and Dave had done it as a duo a couple of times with the computer backing. But we've got a gig in, would you believe, it's me and Dave. It's Kevin Bailey, who's the artist at Raid. He does the kind of narration and bit of vocal stuff. David Doak, who's Dr. Doak in Goldeneye, he plays bass. And we've got a guitar player called Nigel, called Phil, and another drummer called Phil, Nige. And we do gigs as we call ourselves Video Games Rock. That's our little thing. So we've got a gig in Norway, would you believe, in I think next month, August, I think.
Wow.
And we've got a gig in Switzerland, I think in October. So it's a full block. I mean, please just play me and Dave's tunes. We do a bit of his, bit of mine, stick it together, do a bit of Goldeneye, Donkey Kong, all that stuff. I'll
Oh man.
play guitar. So yeah, so we're trying to do more of that, but it's hard to get everybody available at the same time. So, but sometimes at conventions, me and Dave will do it together. I mean, he's got it on a computer, so I'll play guitar, he'll play sax, and we've got the backing track on the computer. We play a couple of tunes from DK, a bit of Banjo Kazooie, and Gold, what have you. So yeah, so we do a bit of that. But on top of that, some in the UK, a promoter in the UK just contacted me about a few months ago to say they want to put on a gig of just my stuff in London. So I don't know if that's so. Right now, we're discussing that about what we'd play and how it's going to go. I think it'd be a small ensemble at first, maybe 6, 7 people. Do it more like a rock show. So I'll do a bit of guitar, conduct it a bit. I don't know. So that's possibility. So that, as I say, that's in the discussion phase at the moment. So who knows? But they seem very keen to do it. So and they've just done a couple of Undertale concerts, which have gone very well. So
Nice.
it's like the company they normally do the West End shows in London, the kind of musical stuff. So they know what they're doing. So I was kind of quite flattered they were interested in putting me on. And I was like, oh, do you think it's a thing? Is anybody going to turn up, to see it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, you never know.
I got to tell you, I would pay money to see that show. I would pay money to see you and David Weiss with the band. I think you should bring it to LA. If there's any way I can help, I know a lot of venues and
Right.
show promoters. We can make that happen. But yeah, I would love to see that. And I think, especially with like I feel like you would sell out an arena just based on we're going to play the GoldenEye pause music. People would sell out an arena.
I do feel like there's quite a lot of video game bands going around, but there's none with the actual composers in them.
Yeah,
So the fact that me and Dave are doing our own tunes makes a bit of a difference.
yeah,
So I don't know. As I say, we're up for anything. So if we can make it work, we'll make it work.
yeah, man. Those Donkey Kong soundtracks. I mean, they're incredibly popular.
Yeah,
There are
fantastic.
all kinds of reels on Instagram that I see with them. I can't even find a vinyl that's less than $500 on eBay
Yeah,
for those
yeah.
soundtracks. So I do think there's a market for that, and I would love to see that.
Well,
Um,
you never know. As I say, we are trying to do a bit more. So our plan would be to try to do a bit of a mini tour at some point. It's just getting everyone together. That's all.
For sure, for sure. Well, we're at an hour, so I want to wrap it up for you. I know you're busy, so final question I had: Mount Rushmore of video game composers for you.
It has to be Koji Kondo, I think, for definite, because he's
Okay.
an absolute legend. Uh, God, who else would I put up there? It would be the Japanese guys, but I can't think of the names. So I guess I feel like the Japanese guys kicked it off for all of us.
Mm,
So they were the ones that started it off. and gave all of us a living, right? It was those are the guys, the Sega guys and all the rest of the Nintendo guys and all those people. I mean, they wrote all those tunes that made us all want to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
So I feel like us Westerners don't hold a candle to those guys.
Yeah, I mean, two of my favorite of all time are Japanese composers. So Nobuo Uematsu from Final
Yeah, for
Fantasy,
sure, him, right? Yeah, for sure, yeah,
and Yasunori Mitsuda,
right,
who did
right.
a Chrono Trigger, a couple
Oh
Dragon
yeah,
Quest games.
fantastic. Yeah, yeah.
Those songs to this day. I'll throw those on just to have them in the background.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
for work.
I was a kind of big RPG player at the start, so Legend of the Mystical Ninja and all those games, and the Final Fantasy early ones, and Chrono Trigger, all those games. I played all of those games because I just
Nice.
loved that genre, and the tunes were great. So yeah, it's got to be those guys, I think.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, do you have any upcoming shows, convention appearances, anything you want to promote or talk about or put out there?
So I'm going to be in Greenville, is that South Carolina, North Carolina, two or
South
three
Carolina.
weeks? Yeah, 2 3 weeks. I'm going to be there. I've got one in Louisiana somewhere, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Florida, Cleveland. I think that's all the shows that I've got so far, all the conventions. So I'll be there. So come and say hello. I'll be there. I'll be there.
Well, so people can go to do you have a website? Do you rather they go to their socials to find these
So
dates?
yeah, so my website is just me music stuff. So I guess Celebworks is the people that my agent for the personal appearances, but I don't think they advertise the shows. You'd have to go and look at it, what they're all called. I can't remember the names of them all right now. Um, but yeah, I can't think. Yeah, the next one's South Carolina. Yeah.
Well, you always promote it in your
Yeah, oh yeah,
Instagram
for
and
sure.
whatnot.
Yeah,
So
if you look at my Twitter thing and my Instagram and all, I'll always stick it on there a week or so before, so I'm going to be there. But yeah, I really like the conventions. I remember saying to you when I met you the other week that I think they're great places to go, and I think what I like about it the most is that people can go there, they can dress how they want to dress, be who they want to be, and no one cares. That's fantastic. I think in this day and age, that's pretty special. Everybody gets along, no matter what you look like, no matter who you are. I think that's pretty great. So
yeah, yeah.
I love it for that. It's great.
Yeah, my wife got me into those, man. I remember, when we first met, she asked me if I wanted to go to one. I'm like, that's for nerds. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then she's like, yeah, but you're a nerd. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. So I went to a Florida SuperCon. I was blown away. I love the community,
Mm.
the opportunity to meet artists, not
Yeah,
just
yeah,
the ones that you know and admire, but some newer up and coming or people that are just independent that are trying to get their stuff out there,
yeah,
and meet like-minded people. I love it, and we try to go to as many of them as we can.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad that you're doing that circuit, and I'm my goal, and I've told my wife this. My new goal in life as a creator is to come up with something good enough so where I would be invited to do the
Right,
convention scene.
right. Yeah, no, no. I feel like you. I was surprised that they said we think we can represent you to do these cons. I was like, no one's going to care about me. Who's going to want my autograph? I didn't think anybody would give a shit. So I'm as surprised as anybody else. So,
Well, hey man,
so yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for everything you've done over the years with music, and for being so kind to be friendly and talk to me and want to do the podcast. So I appreciate you.
No, thanks for asking me. I'm flattered.
Well, everybody, please follow Grant Kirkhope on all of the things. Twitter, I'll have the links on the thing below. And again, hopefully I'll see you on the road and performing out here in LA at some point.
Yeah, too right.
All right, man. Have a good day. Take
All
care.
right, Eddie. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.